Beneath the sheets. The night that shattered us. It started as an innocent evening wrapped in laughter and soft music, the kind of night that lingers long after it's over, when hearts feel light and eyes shine with unspoken excitement. The room was dimly lit, the glow from scented candles flickering across the walls like secrets waiting to be told. She looked stunning, draped in silk, lips parted ever so slightly, the kind of beauty that pulls something primal from deep within. He sat close, too close, his best friend, whose eyes lingered on her longer than they should have, but not enough to be obvious. The wine flowed, conversations danced between their lips, and underneath it all was something more. Something electric, dangerous, and unspoken. The idea came up as a joke, tossed into the air like a dare wrapped in laughter, but no one said no. It hung there, between the glances and sips, simmering like the heat rising from their skin. The room grew warmer, breaths deeper, touches accidental, or so they pretended. When he reached out to tuck a loose strand of her hair behind her ear, no one stopped him. No one said a word. She didn't flinch. Her eyes met her husband's, wide, questioning, trembling, but curious. A nod, slow, unsure, but enough to open the gates of something irreversible. Clothes hit the floor like forgotten promises, one piece at a time, until shame no longer existed. She kissed him, his best friend, with lips that once belonged only to her husband, moaning in a pitch he had never heard from her before. It shattered something in him, yet aroused him in ways that confused his soul. They moved to the bed, her body trembling with anticipation, while he watched, helpless, stunned, fighting against his jealousy and desire, battling between possession and permission. His friend was bigger, rougher, hungrier, and her gasps echoed with disbelief at the stretch of her limits. He watched as she wrapped her legs around another man, as he took her in ways he thought only he could. Her face twisted in pleasure and pain, biting her lips until they bled slightly, moaning out as if every touch from him unraveled years of repression. She cried at one point, not out of sadness but overwhelmed emotion, lost between betrayal and freedom. The sheets turned crimson near the edge, a small tear from the force of it all, and still they didn't stop. Round after round she begged, cursed, clung, clawed, completely consumed in raw, unapologetic need. He couldn't believe the sound she made, the words she whispered, the way her back arched and her nails dug into another man's skin. His own body betrayed him, turned on, aroused, confused, heartbroken. Tears streamed down his face as he watched his wife become someone else's fantasy. But he didn't stop them. There were hidden cameras discreetly placed. His idea and hers, capturing every breath, every scream, every betrayal. The plan had started weeks before, after he found messages on her phone, flirty, secretive, unfinished conversations with a man he called his brother. He hadn't confronted her immediately. Instead he built a trap, not out of revenge but to understand just how far it had gone. And tonight was the answer. She wasn't forced. She wasn't drugged. She was hungry. Hungry for the man beside him, moaning louder with each thrust, whispering things that stabbed his heart with every syllable. She said she'd never been touched like this before. She said she didn't want it to stop. And when she begged for more, the sixth time, her body shaking violently from overstimulation, he realized she had already left him, emotionally, spiritually, long before this night. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was in the way her eyes never once searched for him in the dark. It was in the way she kissed the other man after each climax, gently, lovingly, as if he was the one who deserved her softness. When the night ended, her body lay limp across the bed, unconscious from exhaustion, bruises forming on her thighs and hips, blood staining the sheets in quiet rebellion. He sat alone, a broken man, staring at the screen that showed every moment from multiple angles. His best friend had gone to the bathroom, whistling, unfazed. The cameras recorded it all, her pleasure, his silence, the betrayal, the pain, the fall of their marriage. And still, no one knew the final card he held. He had saved every message, every flirt, every image. This wasn't just about passion anymore, it was about truth. What they didn't know was that the cameras were linked to a live server. Everything had been streaming in private. Every moan was recorded, every kiss documented. He planned to confront them in the morning, but not with words, with undeniable proof. The pain in his chest wasn't just heartbreak. It was rage simmering beneath tears. He wasn't a victim. He was a witness, a planner, a man torn between revenge and the ghost of love. As dawn began to stretch across the sky, he stood silently by the window, naked, broken, watching the city wake while the one woman he once gave his soul to lay tangled with another. And yet, the real story hadn't even begun. Because what none of them knew was that someone else had been watching too. Someone who would shatter everything with a truth so dark, so shocking, that this night, this betrayal, would feel like mercy in comparison. The real twist, the one that would destroy them all, was still hidden in the shadows, waiting. The morning air was colder than usual, pressing against the windows with a silent tension that mirrored the storm inside the room. She woke slowly, groggy, sore, confused. Her body ached in ways she hadn't expected. Thighs bruised, skin sensitive, lips swollen from hours of moaning, begging, surrendering. The sheets stuck to her damp skin, soaked in sweat, sex, and shame. When her eyes finally focused, she turned toward the empty side of the bed, expecting warmth, a familiar smile, or even judgment, but found nothing. No one. The man who had wrecked her body was gone, and so was her husband. The silence was terrifying, not peaceful. Her heart raced as memories of the night before crashed into her like waves. Every kiss, every thrust, every moment she crossed the line etched vividly in her brain. She touched her own skin, trembling not in guilt, but in disbelief that she let it all happen, that she wanted it. Downstairs he sat in the living room, eyes red, body still, watching the recordings over and over again. Every scream she made for someone else played on a loop. His hands clenched the armrests, veins pulsing, jaw locked. He hadn't slept, hadn't blinked for hours. Her voice haunted him, those dirty, desperate moans as she told another man she never wanted her husband again. And yet he still loved her. That was the cruelest part of it all. He stood up slowly, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water, knowing the confrontation was moments away. But before he could speak, she entered the room, wrapped in a thin sheet, eyes puffy, lips trembling. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. But he said nothing, just stared cold, distant. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," she added. Still silence. Until he finally pointed to the laptop screen, playing back her sixth climax. Her voice raw from crying out the name of his best friend, over and over. She fell to her knees, tears exploding from her soul, begging for forgiveness, trying to explain what couldn't be undone. Then came the twist she hadn't seen coming. He turned the screen again and played another video, one she didn't know existed. It showed her weeks ago in the same bedroom on the phone, whispering sweet things to the same man. There had been a previous night, secret night, and she had lied about everything. It wasn't the first betrayal, it was the second. She screamed, covering her mouth, trying to shut the truth out. "Why didn't you stop me?" she cried. "Because I needed to see who you really are," he answered coldly. She tried to crawl to him, reaching for his leg like a broken doll, but he stepped back. "You made your choice. Now watch what I do with mine." He left the house that morning with a hard drive, a heart full of rage, and a plan that would make her regret every breath she took in his absence. But the story didn't end there. That night, she called his best friend again, crying, panicking, terrified that everything would be exposed. But he didn't answer. Not at first. When he finally did, his voice was different. Distant, empty, guilty. "He knows," she whispered. "I know," he said coldly. "He sent me the footage." Her body froze. "You knew we were being recorded?" she asked. "No," he answered. "But now that I've seen it, can't unsee it. I don't think I can look at myself in the mirror." She begged him not to abandon her, but his silence said everything. Another betrayal. Another heart broken. Days passed. Shame grew heavier. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Her husband never returned, and the man she threw herself at had vanished. Then came the final blow, a package at the door. Inside was a flash drive labeled, "The Truth." Along with it, a letter written in shaking hands. "Watch it. Then look in the mirror. See what you've done. What we've all become." The video on the flash drive was raw, dark, and devastating. It showed her husband, crying, alone, bleeding from the wrist, whispering into the camera about how everything he believed in had been destroyed. "I loved her. I trusted him. And now, all I have is emptiness." But before the video ended, the screen cut to black. And another video started playing. A hidden camera feed she didn't know existed. This time, it was placed in her best friend's house. It showed a secret, something that hadn't been revealed yet. Her best friend, the one she trusted most, had also slept with him. Her husband. Months before any of this happened. The betrayal wasn't just hers. It had started long ago. A circle of lies, lust, and selfish pleasure. Everyone had touched someone they shouldn't have. Everyone had lied. She screamed at the screen, tearing at her hair, breaking the table, screaming until her voice cracked. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a trap, a web they all spun together without realizing they were suffocating in it. The story went viral. The footage was leaked, anonymously. Faces blurred, voices distorted. But the raw emotions, the betrayals, the breakdowns, uncensored. The internet dubbed it, the swap that shattered 3 lives. Everyone had an opinion, but no one knew the whole truth. She tried to rebuild herself. Therapy, isolation, meditation. But every night she cried. Not just for the sex, not just for the betrayal, but for the man who loved her enough to let her break his heart just to see if she would come back. And she didn't. Not in time. Weeks later she heard rumors. He had disappeared. Some said he left the country. Others believed he ended his own story. But one day in her inbox a final message appeared. "You wanted freedom. Gave it to you. Now live with it." And that was the end. Not with screaming. Not with revenge. But with silence. The kind of silence that crushes the soul slowly. The kind of silence that never leaves, even after all the moaning, all the crying, all the bleeding stops. She had everything and lost it all. Not because she cheated, but because she forgot the value of being held by someone who truly loved her. And now, the only arms she has are her own, and they're too weak to hold what's left of her.